Welcome to today's live stream, everybody. It's been a while, I think at least a month since our last stream. Um, I would say a much needed break, but realistically, there were a lot of different projects that needed to be completed by the end of 2025 and are still carrying over into 2026. But I'm making up for it. There are 3 streams this week. So we have this one. We're doing one on the Palestine Laboratory documentary based on the book by Anthony Lowenstein, which we've done reviews of. We'll be doing that on Saturday. And then I'm going to a screening of The Voice of Hin Rajab on Sunday, and I will be doing a live stream, 2 live streams. One, I will do sort of an immediate reaction on my Substack right after the film, and there's a panel. And then I'll process it a little bit more, and I'll do another live stream later that night when I've had some time to consider it. Very powerful film from everybody who's gone to it. So I'm somewhat bracing for it and looking forward to it at the same time. So to talk about today's live stream, a sort of unbelievable documentary expose of Betar, put together by someone who had infiltrated. And the irony, of course, this is the sort of tactics that Mossad and organized Jewry normally engage in anyway, being done to them. And ending, the film ends with Roni Torosian saying to Yoni Kletzel, to the 2 protagonists, you could say, in this documentary, he says to him in Hebrew, are you sure about this guy effectively? And Yoni says, yeah, I tested him, not sure. And of course, turns out he was an infiltrator, and he didn't do anything other than ask Roni and Yoni what they really thought. And since they thought they were talking to a friend, they said what they really thought. But there's most of the documentary is just them talking. And we probably have to back up a little bit, because if we're talking about Betar, you have to understand who Ze'ev Jabotinsky is. If you want to know who Ze'ev Jabotinsky is, now we also have to talk about revisionist Zionism. So who is Ze'ev Jabotinsky? He is one of the characters in the early part of Zionism who is arguing for a certain way of exercising Zionism. He sees Chaim Weizmann, as who was the president of the World Jewish Federation or the Jewish Union, something along these lines, but who was representing the Jews to the European powers. And Jabotinsky finds these people to be too weak. And he's very much considered a right-wing Jew. And Yoni Kletzel introduces himself at the very beginning of the documentary. He says, I'm a right-wing Jew. So revisionist Zionism has a maximalist vision. So for the idea of river to the sea, that's nothing to them. They also want the east bank of the Jordan. They don't just want the west bank of the Jordan. They envision greater Israel. Before it was, you could say, before it was cool, before people knew about greater Israel, they were part of the idea of the greater Israel idea. So revisionist Zionism is founded around, let's say, 1925. Betar, as a youth movement, 1923. So that, I think he does that in Latvia. But he's trying to cover both bases. He's trying to deal with the here and now by, you could say, organizing against Chaim Weizmann and the World Zionist Congress. He even founds another organization called the New Zionist Organization in 1935 because he thinks that the World Zionist Organization is too weak. So from the beginning, you have to understand Jabotinsky, Jewish terrorist, doesn't consider the mainline Jewish Zionist line to be acceptable. He wants to push the boundaries, and he feels that that's his job, to push those boundaries, bombing people. That's the job. He also, if you want to think about practicalia, he is the one who coined the term iron wall. There's a very famous essay of his. I would suggest you go read it. If I remember, I'll come back and link to it in the description. You can find it online. Just, you can Google Jabotinsky iron wall. But that idea of a very realist vision. He said the Palestinians are not going to just accept us coming into their land. We are going to have to take them on in a very harsh way. It's not a long essay. And he also argued for a more economically liberal view. If you read Herzl, The Jewish State, which is a review we've done on the channel, you'll see that socialist vision that Herzl had. Jabotinsky is opposed to this. He wants a more economically liberal model. So if you understand revisionist Judaism as maximalist in geography, liberal in economics, and very harsh in the everyday ruling aspect, the practicalia, the iron wall idea, that's Jabotinsky, that's revisionist Zionism. The component to that is, well, how do we prep people to do this when they're adults, get them when they're young? And that's what Betar does. What's interesting is both Yoni and Roni give us the song and dance of, is it good for the Jews? That's the primary question that we're asked. Is it good for the Jews? That is the guiding principle of Betar. Not is it good for the world, not is it good, but is it good for the Jews? And what's interesting is all of this talk has nothing to do with God. So this idea of being good Jews, Yoni sums it up at the very beginning. I think they're being it looks like Central Park from the background. I don't think of any other place in New York that would have that kind of greenery and space. So it feels like Central Park. Be good Jews. It says be a vigilante force. Make Aliyah. If you don't know what Aliyah is, that's the immigration from anywhere in the world to Israel. There's nothing religious about it, but as I've always said, Jews are definitionally religious. The only identity Jews have are their relationship to the God of the Old Testament and being the chosen people. Outside of that, there's nothing to Judaism being a Jew. And so this sort of atheistic, or even you could say secular vision of Jewry is incoherent. What does it mean to be a Jew if you are not a believer in God and what God asks you to do? But there's nothing about that. And in fact, we have purposely edited scene in which Roni is talking about we want to encourage people to be good Jews, and then he's yelling at Orthodox Jews, telling them that they're not Jews. This is strictly in the tradition of revisionist Zionism, telling Jews that they're not Jewish enough, that the real vision of Judaism is this right-wing Zionist supremacist vision. Now, this isn't to say that Talmudic Judaism doesn't have at its root a supremacist vision. It certainly does. But you could say this is the more militant version of it. It's the one that follows the logical conclusions of Talmudic Judaism. So you have all of these tropes, these supremacist tropes. Roni says on camera, we are the greatest people in the world. People who support terrorism should be deported, and supporting terrorism means supporting the rights of Palestinians. That's supporting terrorism. He talks about this crazy conspiracy that, Jews are in more danger than they've ever been. This is before the election of Mamdani. They're baffled as to why 20 to 30% of New York Jews are going to vote for Mamdani. And Yanni Kletzel's retort is, you're just confused. All of these 30% of these Jews, they're just confused. They're not as enlightened as the people at Betar. And then they say, well, we should just leave New York. And it's that same idea that one day we're going to get rounded up in New York City. America is just as unsafe as anywhere else. We're always going to get chased. And this is the point when you hear this paranoia from Jews, you always have to, and this may be disturbing for some people, but you have to ask them, why is that? Why is it that Jews face this problem worldwide? Is it because all the nations of the world who don't even share a language have some secret conspiracy against the Jews? Or is it something about how the Jews act in nations that are not their own that causes problems with the local population? Those are the two possibilities. Either people who don't share the same language, religion, geography are all in a worldwide conspiracy against the Jews. That's option one. Or option two, there is something that Jews are doing that is causing friction with the local population. As I've said before on the channel, there's never any justification for murder, rape, any of those things. But there can be justifications for frictions, for troubles, for creating legislation that limits contacts with certain populations. And what we're seeing here is the normal, you could say, victim train that we get from Ernie Tosserian. And he explains it. He said, I grew up in a household and my mom talked every day about the Holocaust. And Norm Finkelstein talks about what this leads to is this Holocaust industry where this is all that's ever talked about, and that Jews are the eternal victims. And yet at the same time, ironically, Betar is trying to assert a more muscular, a more militant, he says, "Where are all my angry young Jews?" Roni asks. Well, this is this is in fact what you're asking for. If you're asking for angry young Jews, do you think that other people are going to be very excited about that? And you could put anything else you want in there. Angry young, I don't know, Buddhists, angry young Muslims. No one is happy to have angry young blanks around them. The question is, what are you angry about? You can ask larger questions. But all throughout this documentary, it's wonderful to see Yoni and Roni at peace, just talking about what they really believe. And the question is, if that's what you really believe, why hide from it? Why are you worried whether this guy is going to do you dirty? All he did was expose you talking all the time. For those who don't know, Rabbi, I'm losing my words here. Rabbi Mir Kahan, a Kahanist is someone who supports this violence against the Arabs. There's various intercuts in the documentary of him um, speaking and the chant "Death to Arabs" happening in the background. In fact, they have a quote of him saying, "The Arab is a cancer in our midst, and cancers have to be cut out." So this Kahanist idea, you have to keep in mind, Ronnie is within his own Jewish community. He's considered a radical. He was barred, I think, temporarily from the 2025 World Jewish Congress for problems, unsurprisingly, with his own people. If he's going around screaming at Orthodox Jews on the street, telling them they're not Jewish, this is not someone who gets along with his own people. And yet he's arguing that we are the people who are against Jews when he's even against Jews himself. Going to the end of the documentary, I will say I smiled a very broad smile because at the very end of the documentary, we hear Ronnie and the camera's not off. It's just we just hear audio. But the documentarian, the producer, is asking about the PR war effectively. And what's interesting is Ronnie, I think, has a PR company. So he really knows what he's talking about when he's talking about PR because he does it for a living. He seems to be very successful at it. And the producer says, "Is the media war winnable?" And Ronnie says, "No, the media war is not winnable. The world has changed." Earlier in the documentary, Yoni Kletzel says, "Israel is getting crushed in PR. We need a big win." I smile the broadest smile I have for some time when dealing with these ideas that the most militant Jews think they're losing. And they have this um, delusion, even as they're losing. One of the quotes I wrote down, "The media has been conquered." For them, the idea that the media would start to say that maybe are Palestinian people? Is it wrong to kill children? They consider that the media being conquered. So that's how little tolerance they have for any question of the Zionist narrative. So those are just a few of the things I wanted to talk about, but it is, and he mentions Canary Mission. If you don't know about Canary Mission, they effectively try to dox people who are activists. And this is part of why I tell people in general in life, so this is sort of a larger life question. If you want more agency to be who you are as a person, make yourself uncancelable. You cannot be canceled if you have your own business, if you are your own company, but you certainly can be canceled if you're looking for a regular type job with corporate exposure. So if you, and it doesn't have to be about Palestine, it could be about anything. It could just be standing up for your Christian religion and what you believe in. You could be canceled too. So make yourself, one of the greatest steps you can take for yourself, apart from anything we're talking about here, is make yourself uncancelable so that you can live in truth. You can live the truth that you believe in your mind and in your heart, out in the street and in your everyday life. And people like Canary Mission, people like Betar are going to try to make sure that you're not allowed to be who you really are. You're not allowed to say what you really think. That's what these people are about. And they have to be resisted. Now, apparently, I'm told that when this documentary was released, they received some kind of fine and they were told they don't have to pay the fine if they agree to be disbanded. But I mean, it's Betar and it's the Jews. So I don't expect compliance. I expect some sort of working around the rules. But uh as I say, a very hopeful documentary in the sense that it ends with both of them admitting effective defeat. Not you could say long-term defeat, but at this very moment, they feel that they are losing the argument in the public sphere. And that's very heartening to hear that from someone declared as a right-wing Jew to say that he's losing the mission for Roni Torosian, who's been working in this, you could say, field since he was 11 years old, saying that the media has been conquered. These are hopeful things to hear. So it's something. I think 45, 49 minutes. So if you didn't have a chance to watch it before today's stream, when you're done, I really encourage you just go to the description. You'll see a link. Thanks to the Grayzone. If you're not contributing to the Grayzone, at Palestine Bookshelf, we contribute to the Grayzone regularly, and gratitude for their reporting. They do great work, Max and his team there. So let's look at what some of the chats have to say. S Lampers, this is such a scary thing. I saw that they recently got a slap on the wrist, 50K fine for inciting violence, and the Electronic Intifada has a recent video discussing. Meanwhile, Greenblatt in the ADL is saying they have free lawyers and the FBI to go over at anti-Israel activists claiming anti-Semitism. So yeah, the Electronic Intifada, that's another resource that's listed on Palestine Bookshelf. You'll see that they do excellent work. Just not only informing you of what's going on conditions in Gaza, but dealing with larger questions like this one. Protests at synagogues full of many anti-Zionist Jewish people when they're protesting illegal real estate sale events. Yeah, this whole thing that you can sell land that doesn't belong to you. This is part of the idea of God gave us the land. If God gave you the land, of course you can sell it at a real estate sale in New York. Slampers, I'll try to catch it at 7:30. Thank you for that. And we've got an LOL and what a threshold. I think you were talking about me saying that Roni Torosian saying that the media has been conquered. Because finally, I suppose we're admitting that Palestinians are people and that killing children might possibly sometimes on Tuesdays be wrong. So Betar, a propaganda film by the Grayzone. As I said, if you didn't have a chance to watch it and you're just hearing about it for the first time on the stream, please go watch it when you're done here. If you haven't already done so, watching live, hit the like button. If you're watching this later, hit the like button. Share this with people. It helps get the word out to more who may not know about Betar, who may not know about Palestine Bookshelf, and want to know more about what's going on in Palestine, not just from what the media is telling them, but from books, documentaries, human rights reports, articles. That's what we're here to do. This is our third year doing this, and I'm excited to continue to push. We're reaching more people. And I recently got some postcards printed. They're not available on the website yet, but you can see if it's on the screen long enough, that QR code should work. If you pause the video and scan that QR code, and that will take you straight to the bookshelf. And on the back, so this has the website on the bottom. So you can hand these out to people, and on the back, there's 15 different ways you can watch and listen to us. So podcast, we're recently on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe and please leave ratings and reviews. You'll need to listen to a few episodes, I think, before you can leave a rating and review. But there are 15 different ways you can listen to us on audio, watch us on video, or read the articles that we've written. So I'll have these available soon. I think they go for 10 for $1.50. We got them printed for a really good rate. We just want to get them into as many hands as possible. So pass these out to friends, and hopefully they can learn more about what we're doing. What persecution do Jews face? Preferential treatment at airports? Are ICE knocking down their doors? Is Germany treating them badly again? We know what this is. This is playing the victim and screaming and crying about the greatest crime in the history of mankind and never again. But of course, never again doesn't apply to shooting children in the head and the heart. That in fact, that's ever again. That's when the Jews are talking about sniping Palestinian children in the head and in the heart, shooting pregnant women, killing doctors and nurses at hospitals, killing Hin Rajab, just erase the N, and it's ever again. They want it as many times as possible. Remember, they want all of the Palestinians erased, not just as a people. They want their history erased. That's why they plant forests over Palestinian villages that have been ethnically cleansed. That's why they changed the names of places. They have to erase Palestinians completely from the history of the world. And of course, the irony is the more effort they make to erase, the more people like the watchers and listeners of this video and myself pop up, serving as repositories for Palestinian memories. We're able to safely carry those Palestinian memories as they're transmitted to us. We can hold them. We can give them back to the Palestinians when they have their land back. That's the great irony of this. In their desire to erase the Palestinians, they've only made the Palestinians stronger as a people, stronger as a nation, and the cause of Palestine more widely known. The fury that they rained on Palestine after October the 7th has completely turned the world's opinion of Israel in ways that are only resisted by the boomers in the United States. For the boomers in the United States, they stand with Israel. And for other normal people, they know the truth. In a cashless society with Palantir, it will unfortunately be even easier to unperson people. That's true. And I think I've said this to you before. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce those characters, but if you can tell me phonetically, I will do my best to pronounce that. But thank you for the comment there. If there aren't any more comments or questions, I'll end the stream. A reminder, the Palestine Laboratory stream will be this Saturday. And if you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's a 2-episode documentary on Al Jazeera. The link for the stream is within the Palestine Bookshelf channel on YouTube. So if you just go to live and you click on the description, you'll see the link to the 2 episodes, or you can just search for them, Palestine Laboratory Al Jazeera on YouTube, and watch those 2 episodes before our stream. If you can get to a screening of The Voice of Hin Rajab, it's not available everywhere, but as I said, I'll be discussing that on Sunday. So if you can get to a screening of it before Sunday, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the live stream. You may call me David. Okay, David, thank you for your support. And as I said before, if you hadn't hit the like button already, please do so. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. If you want to support our work, you can do so on an ongoing basis on Substack. And if you want to support us one time, you can do so using PayPal or Buy Me a Coffee. You can find links on the main channel. Final reminder, our sticker fundraiser for the Hin Rajab Foundation. You'll find those on PalestineBookshelf.org as well. We have here this one. It's a square one, and the occupation, and also in the occupation and From the River to the Sea. Great conversation starters. You can put them on a water bottle. You can put them on a laptop. You can put them on a notebook, and just get people engaged in conversation. What is that about? Or are you a terrorist? You can tell them, no, I'm not a terrorist. I don't support terrorism. I don't support Jewish terrorism against Palestinians, and see where the conversation goes from there. All right. Thank you all for stopping by the live stream, and we'll see you on Saturday.